You know those people who seem completely untouchable? Like they built a wall so perfect you almost forget there's a person behind it? This story is about one of those. A famous chef. A jewelry maker who showed up every month with something beautiful. And a ring that, one day, wasn't there anymore. I'm Lena. Sit with this one.
I didn't mean to fall in love with a married woman. That's the part people assume comes later, after something dramatic, after a mistake you can point to and say that's where it started. But it didn't start like that. It started quietly, repeatedly, in small, ordinary moments that never felt dangerous at the time. And by the time I realized what I had walked into, it was already something I couldn't step back out of without losing a version of myself I didn't even know I was building. My name is Lila Moreno. I'm 28, and I make jewelry for a living. Not the kind you see behind glass counters under bright white lights. Mine is quieter than that. Hand-shaped, imperfect on purpose. Pieces that feel like they belong to someone before they even wear them. I started small, selling online, then at weekend markets, then eventually building a rhythm that felt stable enough to call a life. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And I liked knowing that everything I created passed through my hands first. Most of my clients ordered through messages. Simple exchanges, measurements, preferences, delivery times. But once a month, I made a delivery in person, always the same address, always the same woman. Her name was Evelyn Hart. I knew who she was before I ever met her. Everyone did, at least in the city. She owned Hart Table, the kind of restaurant people waited weeks to get into. Not flashy, not loud, just precise, intentional. Every plate curated like it meant something. She had that kind of reputation. Controlled, exacting, brilliant. The kind of person people admired from a distance and didn't try to understand too closely. The first time I met her, I expected someone intimidating. What I didn't expect was how still she felt. Not cold. Not exactly. Just contained. Like every movement had been decided before it happened. She opened the door herself that first time, wearing a soft black blouse, sleeves rolled just enough to show her wrists. No jewelry except for one thing, a ring. Simple, elegant, unmistakable. A wedding band. "Lila," she said, like she'd been saying my name in her head before I arrived. "Come in." Her voice wasn't sharp like I imagined. It was low, steady, the kind that didn't need to rise to be heard. I stepped inside, trying not to look like I was taking everything in too quickly, even though I was. The house was exactly what I expected, and somehow not at all. Clean lines, neutral tones, everything in its place. But there was a kind of emptiness to it that didn't match the warmth of the food she was known for creating. No photos, no clutter, no sign of anyone else. I handed her the small box. "This is the piece you requested." She didn't open it right away, just held it, turning it slightly in her hands, like she could already feel what was inside. "You always bring them yourself," she said. "Only for you," I answered, before I could think better of it. That earned a look, not sharp, not surprised, just attentive, like she was filing the sentence away somewhere. "I prefer it that way," she said. When she finally opened the box, the light from the window caught the metal just right. A thin, curved band with a small stone set slightly off-center. Subtle, intentional, not perfect. Exactly what she always asked for. Her thumb brushed over it once, slow. "It feels like you knew what I meant before I said it," she murmured. "I listen carefully," I said. That wasn't entirely true, not in the way it sounded. It wasn't just listening. It was something else, something quieter. I noticed things most people ignored. The way someone hesitated before choosing a word. The way their hands moved when they thought no one was watching. I built my pieces around those details. With her, there were a lot of them. She slipped the ring onto her finger. Not the one with the wedding band, but the other hand. and held it there for a second longer than necessary. "It sits right," she said. There was something about the way she said it that didn't feel like she was talking about the ring. "Same time next month?" I asked. She closed the box gently, even though it was empty now. "Yes." There was a pause, not awkward, just unfinished. "Lila," she said, before I could turn toward the door. I looked back. "Do you ever make something you wouldn't sell?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never really tried." She held my gaze for a second longer than most people would. "You should," she said. I didn't ask why. I left a few minutes later, stepping back out into the late afternoon light, the air warmer than it should have been for that time of year. I told myself it was just another delivery, just another client. But on the drive home, my hands felt different on the steering wheel, like I had just touched something I wasn't supposed to keep thinking about. And the strangest part was, I wasn't thinking about the ring she had just bought. I was thinking about the one she never took off. The first time I noticed something was off, it wasn't anything dramatic. No missing ring, no confession, no lingering touch that crossed a line. It was something smaller than that. So small I almost ignored it. The kind of detail you only catch if you're already paying more attention than you should. It happened a month later. I had a new piece with me that day. A pair of delicate earrings, thin gold lines that curved slightly inward, designed to catch light when the wearer turned her head. I had made them thinking of her without meaning to. That had started happening more often than I liked to admit. Not intentionally, just instinctively. Shapes that felt like they belonged to her. Lines that echoed the way she held herself. When she opened the door, I felt it immediately. Not wrong, just different. Her eyes didn't meet mine right away. "Lila," she said, stepping aside to let me in. Her voice was the same, controlled, measured, but there was something under it. A slight delay, like she had to reach for it instead of letting it come naturally. I stepped inside. The space was just as pristine as always, but there was something different. A glass, half full of water, left near the sink. It shouldn't have stood out, but it did, because nothing was ever left out. She noticed me looking. "I haven't had time to reset everything yet," she said, almost too quickly. I slid the box toward her. "This one's a little different." She picked it up, slower than usual, and opened it. The earrings rested inside, catching the overhead light in a way that made them look almost fluid. "They're softer," she said. "I thought you might want something that moves." She let out a small breath at that. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sigh. "You think I don't?" The question landed heavier than it should have. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I think you're very precise. And that means I don't move. It means you choose when you do." Her eyes lifted then, fully, directly. And for a second, something shifted between us. Not obvious. Not something anyone else would notice. But I felt it. She picked up one of the earrings and held it against her ear, turning slightly toward the reflection in the stainless steel of the appliance nearby. "Do you ever get it wrong?" she asked. "Sometimes." "And what do you do when you do?" I met her gaze. "I fix it." She held my eyes for a second longer than necessary. Then she nodded, almost to herself, and set the earring back down. "I'll take them," she said. Of course she would. She always did. But this time, it didn't feel like a transaction. It felt like something else. Something neither of us was naming. She reached for her wallet, and as she did, her sleeve shifted slightly, revealing more of her wrist than usual. And there, just for a second, I saw it. A faint mark. Not fresh. Not obvious. But not nothing either. My gaze must have lingered a fraction too long, because she pulled her sleeve back down almost immediately. The movement was subtle, controlled, but deliberate. I looked away, not because I didn't notice, but because I understood that I wasn't supposed to. She handed me the payment. Our fingers barely grazed in the exchange. It wasn't a long moment, just a second, maybe less, but enough to make the space between us feel smaller than it should. "Next month?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Yes," she said. Then, after a pause, "Unless you come sooner." The words were quiet, almost casual, but they didn't feel casual. I searched her face, trying to understand what she meant by that, but she had already stepped back, already returned to that composed version of herself she wore so easily. "I'll let you know," she added. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure what I was agreeing to. I left a few minutes later. Same as always. But something stayed with me. Not the earrings, not the house, not even the brief warmth of her hand near mine. It was the space between what she showed and what she didn't. And while I'm telling you all of this, I should mention, there's a Patreon where stories like this one get to breathe differently. More depth, more truth, more of what I can't always say here. Links right below. Okay, where was I? The third visit wasn't supposed to be any different. That's what I told myself on the drive over. Same route. Same quiet neighborhood. Same controlled rhythm I had settled into with her. I even repeated it in my head like it could keep things where they belonged. Client, delivery, polite conversation, leave. But something had already shifted. That month, I brought her a bracelet. Thin, almost weightless. A line that wrapped twice around the wrist before fastening with a barely visible clasp. It wasn't meant to be noticed immediately. It was meant to be felt. When I pulled up to the house, the lights were already on. She didn't open the door right away. I stood there for a few seconds longer than usual before it finally opened. She looked different. Not in the obvious ways. Her hair was still pulled back, her clothes still understated, but her posture, it wasn't as composed. Not messy, not undone, just less guarded. "Lila," she said. No immediate invitation inside, just my name. "Hi," I answered, holding up the box slightly, like a reminder of why I was there. She looked at it, then back at me. "You came," she said. The words were simple, but they landed heavier than they should have. "I always do." She stepped aside. "Come in." The house felt different too. Subtle things. A chair slightly out of place. A book left open on a side table. Signs of life. I placed the box on the counter. "This one's for your wrist," I said. She opened it slowly. More deliberate. She lifted the bracelet carefully, letting it fall slightly between her hands so the light could catch the curve of it. "It's lighter," she said. "It's meant to disappear when you wear it." Her eyes flicked up to mine. "Nothing disappears," she said quietly. There it was again. That layer under the conversation. The one that didn't match the surface. "Some things do," I said. She held my gaze for a second. Then, without looking away, she extended her wrist toward me. "Show me." I hesitated. Not because I didn't understand what she meant, but because of how she said it. Like it wasn't just about the bracelet. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes." I stepped closer and took the bracelet gently from her hand, wrapping it carefully around her wrist and guiding the clasp into place. The metal rested exactly where I had imagined it would, as if I had always known the shape of that space. "Does it fit?" she asked. Her voice was quieter now. "Yes," I said, not trusting myself to say more. She lowered her arm, glancing briefly at the bracelet, then back at me. "It's exactly right," she said. But again, It didn't feel like she was talking about the bracelet. There was a silence after that. Not empty, not awkward, just full. "I should go," I said. She nodded, but didn't move. I walked toward the door. My hand was already on the handle when she spoke again. "Lila." I froze. "Yes?" A pause. Long enough that I thought she might not say anything else. Then, "Next time. Don't wait a month." I turned. She was standing exactly where I had left her. Calm. Composed. But not untouched by what had just happened. "Okay," I said. And this time, I meant it. She wasn't supposed to show up like that. There are people you place inside a specific part of your life without realizing it. You assign them a space that feels contained, controlled, like a room you visit, not somewhere they can walk freely. That's what she had been to me until then. I was working when it happened. Late afternoon light spilling across my studio floor, catching on metal shavings and unfinished pieces scattered across my workbench. My space was nothing like hers. Messy, honest. Half-finished ideas everywhere. I was leaning over a piece, adjusting a clasp, when I heard the knock. Sharp, clear, not tentative. I wiped my hands and walked toward the door without thinking much of it, until I opened it and saw her. Evelyn, standing there like she had always belonged in that doorway. "What are you doing here?" I asked before I could soften it. Her eyes flicked briefly past me, taking in the studio. "I wanted to see where you make them." That wasn't an answer. Not really. But it was honest enough to disarm me. I stepped aside. "Come in." She moved slowly, her gaze shifting as she took everything in. Not judging, not impressed, just observing. "You don't hide anything," she said. I leaned against the table. "There's nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide." "Maybe," I said. "I just don't organize mine." She stepped closer to the table, letting her fingers brush lightly against a row of unfinished rings. "These aren't like the ones you bring me," she said. "They're not meant for anyone yet. Or they're meant for someone you haven't admitted yet." That landed harder than it should have. I looked away briefly, reaching for a tool just to have something in my hands. "You didn't answer my question," I said. "Why you're here." She picked up a small piece from the table, a thin chain with no pendant yet, and let it rest between her fingers. "I wanted to see you outside of that house," she said finally. My chest tightened slightly. "And?" I asked. Her gaze met mine again. "It's different." "Good different?" She held my eyes. "Real." Something about the way she said it made the room feel smaller. "You're not used to real?" I asked, half teasing, half serious. "I'm used to controlled." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." The honesty in that, quiet, unguarded, caught me off guard. I studied her for a second longer than I should have. "You didn't have to come here to see something different," I said. "No," she replied. "But I wanted to." "You don't usually do things just because you want to, do you?" "No." "Then why now?" A pause. Longer this time. And when she answered, it was softer. Because I couldn't stop thinking about it. "About what?" She stepped closer. Close enough now that I could see the slight shift in her breathing. "You," she said. No hesitation, no softening. Just the truth. The room went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, the kind that feels like something is about to happen. I should have said something to bring it back to neutral. But I didn't. I just stood there, feeling the distance between us disappear in a way that wasn't accidental anymore. Her gaze dropped briefly, to my hands, still faintly marked by metal dust, then back to my face. "You're different here," she said. "So are you." That stopped her. Just for a second. "How?" she asked. I didn't overthink it. "You don't look like you belong to something here." Silence. Not defensive, not offended, just quiet. Like I had said something she hadn't let herself hear before. "And what do I look like I belong to?" she asked. I hesitated. Then, "Something that doesn't let you breathe." Her hand stilled, and for the first time since I met her, she didn't have an immediate answer. I didn't expect the message. Not from her. Not like that. It came late, past the hour where conversations feel casual. I had just finished cleaning my tools when my phone lit up. "Evelyn, are you free tonight?" I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I didn't understand the question, but because I did. "Me. Depends." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Come to the restaurant. After closing." I should have said no. That would have been the logical choice. But I wasn't that version anymore. Not with her. "Me. Okay." Heart table looked different at night. Not empty. Never empty. But quieter. More intentional. The kind of quiet that feels earned, not forced. The lights were dimmer than I expected, warm instead of clinical. When I stepped inside, the staff was already thinning out. One of them approached me. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Evelyn. She's in the kitchen." The kitchen was still alive when I stepped in. Heat, motion, focus, and her. She stood at the center of it, not louder than anyone else, not aggressive, but undeniably in control. Every movement around her seemed to orbit what she was doing. "Table 6. Adjust the plating," she said, her voice calm but precise. And then, she looked up, saw me. Something changed, not in a way anyone else would notice. But I did. "Give me a minute," she said, to them, not me. Then she stepped away. "You came," she said when she reached me. "You asked." She searched my eyes for a moment, then nodded. "Come with me." She led me out of the heat, into something quieter. A small private dining space. Soft lighting. A single table already set. 2 glasses. No audience. "You planned this," I said. She pulled out a chair. "Yes." No hesitation. No pretending otherwise. I sat. She moved around the table, taking the seat across from me. Across. Equal. That didn't feel accidental. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached for a bottle, pouring something into both glasses. "You've never seen me here," she said. "No." "What do you think?" I let my gaze settle on her. "You're not different," I said. "Not different? Just clearer. Out there, everyone adjusts to you. In here, you don't have to." She leaned back slightly. "I adjust all the time." "I don't think you do." "And what makes you so sure?" "Because when you do, it shows." Silence. Not defensive, not dismissive, just quiet. She looked down briefly at the table, then back at me. "You see people," she said. "And you?" I asked. "I see what I need to." "That's not the same thing." "No," she agreed. Another pause. Then she leaned forward slightly. "And what do you see when you look at me?" I could have answered carefully, kept it light, safe. But I didn't. "I see someone who built a life that works," I said slowly. But I don't think it fits you." The room went still. Her fingers tightened slightly around the glass. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me. "And what would fit?" she asked quietly. She didn't look away when I said it. That was the first thing I noticed. Most people do. Just for a second, when something gets too close to the truth. But she didn't. She stayed exactly where she was, eyes locked on mine, like she had already decided not to hide from whatever came next. "My marriage," she said, as if she had decided something mid-breath, "was never about love. No build-up, no hesitation, just the truth placed directly between us. It was strategic," she continued, "expected, convenient for the people around me, and at the time," she paused, searching for the word, "necessary." Necessary how? My family built things, businesses, connections, reputation. You don't maintain that kind of structure by making emotional decisions. "And you agreed to that?" I understood it. "That's not the same thing." "No," she said softly, "it's not." "I thought it would be enough," she continued. "A life that worked. A partner who didn't interfere. Stability. Respect." "And was it?" She looked at me again, fully. "No." The word was simple, but it carried weight. Not regret exactly, more like clarity that came too late. "How long?" I asked. "Years," she said. "Long enough to forget what it felt like to question it. And now? Now I notice everything I ignored." That made my chest tighten slightly. "Like what?" Her eyes didn't leave mine. "Like how quiet a house can feel when there's no one in it." "You don't live together?" I asked. "Not really. We share an address when it matters. Events, appearances, situations that require it. And the rest of the time, I live alone." The words sat heavier than they should have, because they didn't sound like independence. They sounded like something else. "And now you're asking it again," I said. Her gaze lifted. "Yes." She studied me for a moment. "You don't sound trapped," I said. "I'm not," she replied. "Then why haven't you left?" She thought. Longer this time. "Because leaving isn't just leaving," she said finally. "It's dismantling everything that was built around me. It's changing how people see me, what I represent, what I'm expected to maintain. And that matters more than you being happy?" She held my gaze. I didn't think happiness was part of the structure. That hit harder than anything she had said so far. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was quiet, matter of fact, like she had lived with that belief long enough for it to feel normal. "And now?" I asked softly. "Now I'm not so sure." She came back 3 days later. Not a month. Not a week. 3 days. I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I was sitting on the floor, surrounded by sketches I had abandoned halfway through. Nothing was landing the way it usually did. I kept thinking about what she had said, about structures, about choosing a life that works versus one that feels real. So when I heard the knock again, I didn't even question it. I just stood up and walked to the door, and there she was. No hesitation this time, no surprise. Just her. "You didn't wait a month," I said, leaning slightly against the frame. "You told me not to." "Are you busy?" she asked. I glanced back at the scattered papers. Not in a productive way. That earned the faintest shift in her expression. "Good," she said. I stepped aside, letting her in again. This time, she didn't move like she was entering unfamiliar territory. She walked in slower, yes, but not cautious. Curious. She had changed, too. Subtle things. A softer fabric. Her hair slightly looser. Still controlled, but not as tightly held. "You work on the floor?" she asked, glancing down at the mess of sketches. "Sometimes, because it's harder to pretend things are finished when they're spread out like this." She considered that. Then, without asking, she took off her shoes, set them neatly by the door, and walked further into the space. That stopped me. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. I moved back toward the floor and sat down again. She didn't hesitate. She joined me. Not across the room, not at a distance. Right there. Close enough that our shoulders almost touched. That felt intentional. She picked up one of the sketches, studying it. These aren't like the ones you make for me. No, these don't have a direction yet. You always seem like you know what you're doing. I don't, I said. I just trust the process. You don't seem afraid of that. I am. That made her pause. You don't look like it. I don't show it. She set the sketch down carefully. Can I try? Make something. You've never done this before. I'm not asking for easy. I handed her a piece of wire. Okay. She took it, turning it between her fingers like she was trying to understand it before acting. You don't overthink it, I said. You just start. That's not how I work. I know. She hesitated. Then she bent the wire. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but deliberately. It's not supposed to be precise, I said. That's going to take time to accept. She tried again. This time her movements were less rigid. And then she stopped. You're watching me, she said without looking up. I always do. Why? I didn't answer right away. Because you're different when you don't have control. That made her pause. She looked at me then. What do you mean? You're quieter, I said, but not closed off. She held my gaze. And what does that look like? I didn't look away. It looks like you. The room went still, in a real way. She didn't respond immediately, didn't deflect, just stayed there. Then, slowly, she set the wire down and leaned back slightly, her shoulder resting close to mine. That's dangerous, she said quietly. What is? That version of me. I turned my head slightly toward her. I don't think so. We sat like that for a moment, shoulder to shoulder, both aware of it, neither moving away. And you? She asked. Are you always like this? Like what? Open. No. What changes it? I looked at her. This. She didn't ask what I meant. She already knew. And for the first time, it didn't feel like we were circling around something anymore. It felt like we were standing right in the middle of it. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't a moment where everything suddenly shifted and forced us forward. It had already been shifting. Quietly. Gradually. In the way she stayed longer than she needed to. In the way I stopped pretending I didn't notice. She was still sitting beside me on the floor. Close. The piece of wire she had been working on rested forgotten between us, slightly bent, unfinished. You're quiet, I said. So are you. That's different. I'm usually quiet. She let out a small breath. Maybe I'm learning. From me? Her eyes shifted toward me. Yes. And what exactly are you learning? She didn't answer right away. Then, that not everything has to be controlled to make sense. And does that make you uncomfortable? Yes. Then why keep doing it? She held my eyes. Because it feels like something I've been missing. I shifted slightly, turning more toward her without thinking about it. Things I didn't allow myself to want, she said, like being here. The space between us changed, not physically, but in a way that felt impossible to ignore. If this changes things, I started. It already has, she said. No hesitation. No doubt. Just truth. That settled something in me. I became aware of how close we were, of the subtle shift in her breathing, of the fact that neither of us had moved away. I didn't plan what happened next. I didn't decide it. I just leaned slightly toward her. Her eyes dropped briefly to my lips, then back to my eyes. And that was the moment, not the kiss itself. The understanding, the quiet agreement that passed between us without words. When we finally closed the distance, it was slow, deliberate. The kind of thing that had been building long enough that it arrived gently, like something both of us had already made peace with. Her hand rested lightly against my arm, not pulling me closer, not pushing me away. Just there, present. When we pulled back, it was gradual. Neither of us rushed it. She stayed close. Neither of us spoke right away. "That wasn't a mistake," she said softly. I shook my head. "No." "That makes things harder," she added. "Only if you pretend it didn't happen." Her gaze held mine. "I'm not pretending anymore." That was the real shift, not the kiss, not the closeness. That. "This isn't simple," she said. "I know." "And you still—" "Yes," I said before she could finish. No hesitation. No doubt. She held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Not like she was agreeing with me, like she was accepting something. And for the first time, it didn't feel like we were standing on opposite sides of something complicated. It felt like we had stepped into it, together. It didn't fall apart right away. For a few days after that night, everything felt sharper, not unstable, not chaotic, just more real than anything I had been part of before. She didn't disappear. She didn't retreat. Messages turned into conversations. Conversations turned into moments we didn't plan. Short visits, longer ones, silences that didn't need to be filled. But the rest of her life, it still existed too. I noticed it the next time I went to the restaurant, during service. She had invited me again. No explanation, just a time. Everything about her was sharper here, more defined, more controlled. She moved through the space with precision, giving instructions without raising her voice, adjusting details no one else seemed to notice. She didn't belong to herself here. She belonged to what she had built. She saw me. Of course she did. Even in the middle of everything, her eyes found mine. But this time, she didn't come to me. She couldn't. And I understood why. I took a seat, alone, and watched. All I could think about was what she had said. I adjust all the time. Now I could see it. Not in what she did, but in what she didn't show. She didn't smile the same way. Didn't exist the same way. When service slowed, she finally came over. Calm. Composed. Like nothing had changed. "Everything okay?" she asked. Her tone was neutral, professional. I looked at her, really looked. "You're different here." "I told you that," she said. "That doesn't mean I like it." People moved around us, everything in its place, except this. "What are we doing?" I asked. "We're having dinner." "That's not what I meant." A pause. Longer this time, and I could see it, the calculation, the awareness, the weight of everything around her. "This isn't the place for that conversation," she said quietly. I nodded slowly. Exactly. That landed. Not loudly, but clearly. "I'm not asking for something complicated," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I just need to know what this is outside of all of this." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "This is part of it." I stood up slowly. Not dramatic, not abrupt. Just done sitting there, pretending it felt normal. "I think I should go." That got a reaction, not visible to anyone else, but I saw it. You don't get to be two different people and expect me to understand both without choosing one. Silence. Real silence this time. Her eyes didn't leave mine, and for the first time since I met her, she looked uncertain. Not lost. Not weak. Just at a point she hadn't decided yet. "I'm not asking you to decide right now," I said more quietly. "I just can't keep pretending this doesn't matter." "I'm not pretending." "No," I said. "You're separating." That hit. I could see it. The way she absorbed it. Didn't reject it. Didn't argue. Just took it in. "I need time," she said. "That's fair, but I won't stay in something that only exists when it's convenient." Her eyes held mine, and this time, there was no version of her hiding behind control. Just her, standing there, with the weight of everything she had built pressing in from all sides. "I understand," she said, and I believed her. That was the hardest part. I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. I just walked away. Quietly, leaving her in the middle of the life she had created. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if she would follow. I didn't hear from her for 4 days. Not a message, not a call, nothing. At first, I told myself it was expected. She had asked for time, and I had given it. I tried to go back to my routine, to my work, to the quiet rhythm that had always been enough before she stepped into it. But something had shifted, not in a dramatic way, in a permanent one. The studio felt different, not empty, just aware. Like every space she had stood in still held a trace of her presence. The floor where we had sat, the wire she had bent and left behind, still exactly where she had set it down. I didn't touch it. On the 4th day, I stopped checking my phone. Not out of discipline, out of self-preservation. If she was going to choose something, it had to come from her. That afternoon, I decided to leave the studio. No reason, just movement. I needed to be somewhere that didn't feel like her. I ended up walking without direction, letting the city carry me. The air was warmer than it had been all week. I didn't realize where I was until I stopped. Heart table. Of course. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it felt inevitable. I stood across the street for a moment, watching the place from a distance. I could have turned around, walked away, left it where it was. But instead, I crossed the street. I didn't go inside. I just stood there, near the entrance, letting myself feel the weight of it. And then, the door opened. Not from someone coming in, from someone stepping out. Her. Evelyn. She stopped the moment she saw me. Not surprised, not relieved. Just still. For a second, neither of us moved. The noise from inside the restaurant softened behind her as the door closed. The city filled the space between us instead. "You came," she said. Her voice wasn't controlled this time. It was clear. "I didn't plan to," I answered. "I know." She stepped closer, not slowly, not carefully, like she had already decided something. And wasn't going to second-guess it now. There was no ring. I noticed it immediately. Her left hand, bare, not replaced, not hidden. Gone. I looked at it for a second longer than I meant to. Then back at her. She saw it. Of course she did. "I took it off," she said. "I can see that. I didn't put it somewhere safe," she added. "I didn't store it. I didn't transition out of it." She held my gaze. I walked away from it. The words settled between us. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. "What about everything else?" I asked. "I'm still dealing with it. Your reputation, your work, the structure you built." "Yes." "And you're okay with that?" She didn't hesitate. "No." "Then why do it?" She stepped closer. Close enough now that I could see the slight tension in her breathing. Because for the first time, she said, I understood what I would lose if I didn't. Silence. Not empty. Not uncertain. Just real. I studied her for a moment. You don't do things halfway. No. I noticed. A faint shift in her expression. Not quite a smile, but something warmer than before. I'm not asking you to trust this immediately, she continued, or to step into something without understanding what it means. Then what are you asking? She held my gaze. Time. But not the kind that keeps things separate. That mattered, more than anything else she could have said. You're not going back to that? No. There was no hesitation, no softening, just certainty. I exhaled slowly. And you? I asked. Her eyes didn't leave mine. I'm still figuring that out. That felt honest, not polished, not controlled, just true. A quiet moment passed between us. Then, she reached for my hand. Not slowly, not carefully, just directly. Like she wasn't going to pretend this part didn't exist anymore. Her fingers closed around mine. Warm, real, present. No hesitation. I looked down at our hands for a second, then back at her. You didn't have to do this alone, I said. I know, but I needed to know I could. That made sense, more than I expected. I nodded slowly, then tightened my hand around hers, not pulling her closer, not holding her back. Just staying there, with her. No versions, no separation. Just this. She glanced down briefly at my wrist, then back at my face. Do you still have it? She asked. The piece you never finished? She nodded. It's still where you left it. A small pause. Then, can we finish it? She asked. Not like a metaphor, not like something symbolic. Just simple. Real. I looked at her, at the way she was standing there now, not controlled. Not divided, just present. Yeah, I said, we can. And for the first time, it didn't feel like we were stepping into something uncertain. It felt like we were building something that actually belonged to us. People always assume the hardest part is the decision. The moment someone walks away from what they built. The moment they take off the ring. The moment everything changes. But that's not where the story settles. That's where it begins. The first few months weren't clean. They weren't easy. And they definitely weren't quiet. Evelyn didn't disappear from her life. She dismantled it, piece by piece. Not dramatically. Not impulsively. Deliberately. There were conversations that stretched too long, silence that meant more than words, and consequences that didn't resolve overnight. People who had known her for years didn't understand. Some didn't try to. Others turned distance into something polite enough to call acceptance. Her name didn't lose weight in the city. But it changed tone. Less untouchable. More questioned. She didn't fight that. She let it happen. And that was the part I respected most. The restaurant stayed. But it changed. Not the food. Not the precision. Just the way it felt. She started spending less time performing perfection and more time being present. The staff noticed before anyone else did. The tension softened. The space became warmer in a way that couldn't be designed. It had to come from her. And it did. She didn't move in with me right away. That would have been easy. Too easy. Instead, she started showing up in small, real ways. Mornings sometimes, unannounced, coffee in hand, standing in the doorway like she had the first time. Except now she didn't hesitate before stepping in. She learned my routines before I noticed she had. She knew when I worked in silence and when I needed noise. She stopped asking permission to belong in my space, And somehow, without forcing it, she did. I went to the restaurant more often, not as a guest, not as someone observing her from across the room, but as someone who understood what it took for her to stand there the way she did. Sometimes I stayed in the kitchen, not interfering, just there, watching her move in that controlled chaos, knowing now what it cost her, and what it no longer did. The piece we never finished, we did. Slowly, over time, not in one sitting, not perfectly. We worked on it between conversations, between moments, between everything else we were learning about each other. It didn't follow any rules, didn't match anything I had ever made before, or anything she had ever worn. It wasn't balanced, it wasn't symmetrical, it wasn't even entirely intentional, but it was honest, and that made it right. She doesn't wear a ring anymore, not the way she used to. No symbol of obligation, no structure she has to maintain. But sometimes, when she's standing at the counter in my studio, sleeves rolled up just enough, hands resting near mine, she wears the bracelet. The one I made before anything had a name, the one that sat on her wrist the first time we crossed that line we couldn't step back from. It still fits the same. We never defined everything. Not in the way people expect. No big declarations. No perfect language for what we became. We didn't need it. Because what we built, it wasn't based on what worked, or what was expected, or what looked right from the outside. It was built the same way I've always made things. From attention, from truth, from the parts people usually ignore. And the strangest part is, if you had asked me before all of this, what would change my life? I wouldn't have said a woman with a ring on her finger. I wouldn't have said a quiet house. I wouldn't have said a series of ordinary deliveries that slowly became something I couldn't walk away from. But that's the thing about the moments that matter. They don't arrive as something obvious. They repeat. They linger. They stay just long enough for you to either ignore them or follow them somewhere real. And I did. She did too. And somehow, that was enough. If you made it this far, thank you for being here. A special hello to Amy from North Carolina, who watches every single video. This one's for you. And if you want me to send you a kiss too, leave your name in the comments. I'll find you. If this story stayed with you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And leave a comment telling me what you thought. I read every single one.